Good morning. Welcome everyone to our March 5th, 2024 9 o'clock board briefing session with the Board of Spokane County Commissioners. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. Commissioner French is on Zoom, and we will get started with our legislative update from Mike Burgess. Mike, almost
morning, commissioners. Getting down to it here. We got 3 days left. I guess we should, all indications are we will in fact be done on Thursday. Word came out yesterday that the budgets have been agreed to. That's always, especially the operating, is the big thing that would keep us here longer. So we should see those coming up soon. Most of the time right now, the legislature is spending their day doing what they call concurrence. So when a House bill goes over to the Senate and gets changed by the Senate, the House has to agree to those changes and vice versa. So they're doing some floor time, just agreeing on the changes that they've made to each other's bills. We have a couple that are part of that. And then a couple yesterday, kind of the biggest news was the legislature did pass those 3 of the 6 citizen initiatives. I'm sure you've read a lot of news stories about that. I don't think we really need to cover those, but those did take up some floor time, especially in the House. Seemed to be a lot more conversation on the floor than there was in the Senate on those. As I mentioned, the budgets are done. Supposedly, we'll see the capital and transportation budgets today, and then operating tomorrow. Once capital's out, I'll go through it and I'll email you what projects are in and what are out, and do it the same with transportation, though that's a lot lighter given the realities around transportation. We'll do the same exercise on the operating side once that's out. So you'll see some messages from me later this week, maybe today on the capital stuff, if not tomorrow. One of the other big pieces of news, I'm sure you know, and probably maybe knew before I did, that Senator Billig has announced that he's not running again. Always a big deal when the majority leader does that. And Representative Riccelli has said he's going to run for that Senate seat. And I had already heard a couple names of who may run for the House. So that's kind of big news that happened regarding Spokane. I can run through the bill list here real quickly. Long and short of it, all the bills that we've talked about on this list are all moving through. The wildfire bill, that is the one, though, that we talked last week, that it was amended and took out the building code. I guess I'll just call it the building code exemptions. Tried to get those back in, but were not successful. So the House is going to have to concur on that bill today or tomorrow. And indications are they will do that, and then it will go to the governor. The other two, that tourism promotion bill has been delivered to the governor already. And anyone here that says House passed third, this is H passed third or S passed third, those bills are more than likely going to go to the governor. They're on 5792 where it says House Speaker signed. That's just more procedural, meaning the Speaker has signed it, and it will go over back to the Senate. They'll sign it, and then it will go to the governor. So pretty much everything here on the list is moved. Yes, I see Commissioner French had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Mr. Burgess. On the wildfire recovery bill, what was the final fiscal note on that because of the grant program for solar panels and stuff? What did they finally come down to with the number?
You know, Commissioner, I haven't seen the refined one yet. I'll look. But the original fiscal note was, I want to say it was in the $6.5 million range, but that was because the bill was open-ended. One of the other things that the Senate did in the Ways and Means Committee when they removed the building code portion, they also put locked in date certain, so the folks that the grant program were going to be available for were those folks impacted by the fires in Spokane. So that should have significantly pared the original fiscal note down, but I'll look and then message you back.
Yeah, well, my point is that Representative Volz's bill would have cost the taxpayers nothing and would have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars for the victims. So, you know, the big night and day difference between the where we started and where we ended up at. Disappointing because a lot of folks are going to be impacted negatively, but it is what it is. Thank you.
Sure, but I'll message you all with what that fiscal note says. If it's been updated, sometimes it takes a while for that to happen. But other than that, commissioners, it's just not a lot new, certainly not much new to report other than just waiting for those budgets, and we'll get that information to you once I see it.
Any questions for Mike? No, just thanks. Oh, Commissioner French, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got one last question. With regard to the public defense and funding for that, do you know whether that made it into the capital budget or not, or the operating budget or not, or did they just take a pass on that?
No, well, Commissioner, we'll see that when we see the budget. My assumption is it will be funded because the bill is making its way through the House and the Senate both. And you're referring to the 5780, the bill there.
Yeah.
But also, I need to know. I don't know. That's the bill that does the grants and some of those. So I'm not even sure how eligible for all that Spokane County will be. But I'll take a peek at that too.
Yeah. So, and just for the benefit of my fellow, and I know that Commissioner Cooney is aware of this, but I think our court date on the litigation is later on in the month of March. So, hopefully the courts will see the wisdom of what we're trying to do as opposed to the legislature. Thank you.
Sure. The other thing too, Commissioner, maybe you're referring to this, is if there's just going to be direct financial assistance in the budget for public defense. That's also a possibility. I'm not very hopeful of that. Just bluntly, given the lawsuit that's occurring, I think the legislature is going to be more inclined to wait and see what the outcome of that lawsuit is before they'll do funding that isn't attached to a piece of legislation. Pretty much the normal course that they've always done with things like that. Back to the initiatives. I guess Ron had texted me or put in the chat, wanted me to talk a little bit more about those. The three that passed were the police pursuit, the one dealing with what's referred to as parental rights, so it deals with education K-12, and then the last being the income tax, or blocking the authority of local governments to impose an income tax. So those are the three that don't really cost any money. The other three will have pretty significant fiscal impacts. In particular, the one dealing with the Climate Commitment Act will have the most in terms of general fund and kind of capital and even transportation budget funding. So those fights will go on to the ballot this fall. The other three will not.
Mike, what are the other two? I know there's the one to repeal the Climate Commitment Act. What are the other two?
Oh, sorry.
Because I don't remember what they are.
The one deals with the long-term care tax.
Oh, long-term care. Okay.
Yeah. So that, and then the third is the capital gains.
Okay. I thought the capital gains. Okay, I thought the capital gains was rolled into the income tax one because the argument was they were the same thing. Okay.
Right.
Because I think the other one's just limiting local government can impose.
You're going to have to remove your vote on an income tax from your agenda if that passes.
Darn it. I'm sorry, Chris.
Go back to the drawing board.
Well, I guess you better get it done quick. I guess it'll be on the November ballot. So
take it off by leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Any other questions for Mike? No, I just say thank you. It's been been a little bit of a fun session, right?
It's been interesting. It's not been like, there hasn't been huge issues like there always is. There hasn't been one dominant. There's been a couple that have popped up that have kind of garnered attention of everybody, but I think that's more just because there's nothing else really going on. I mean, the initiatives were probably the thing that hung over session the most, and whether they would or wouldn't do anything with them. And that's all played out in the last week. They did the hearings last Thursday and Friday and then passed them yesterday. So that's it. But yep.
And did they pass pretty much unanimously or
depends on the initiative, Commissioner. I get the minority party voted unanimously for all of them. The majority party saw splits in their own caucus. I want to say the one with the police pursuit had 15, 18 no votes. And your caucus is close to 60, about a third maybe. But I mean, if you want, I can get you the vote counts, but the no votes came from the majority party.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I saw a spreadsheet that had the Senate votes, and in the majority party, there was a majority of the majority party voted for all three of them, but
Right.
there were a number of folks that voted no, but that was just in the Senate. I haven't seen the roll call
Yeah,
from
and I
the
mean-
House.
And I don't want to make blanket statements, but it was, most likely the more progressive members of that caucus opposed those initiatives. But that's an oversimplification.
But the parental rights one, I think, at least in the Senate, was unanimous.
Okay, yeah.
But
I mean,
just that one.
The biggest, the one that certainly was the most, say, controversial or got the most press was the police pursuit issue. And, that's no stranger to you. We've been discussing that for a couple of years and whether or not the legislature would deal with that. So,
Okay. Commissioner French.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. In conversations off the record with some of my fellow commissioners over here at LSC last week, it was interesting because I shared with you at the beginning of the session, we had members for both delegations in the House and Senate come speak to us. And all of them were saying, this is going to be the most contentious legislative session you've seen in a long time. And it didn't turn out to be that way. I mean, there's some controversial bills that kind of worked their way through the process, but it wasn't as contentious as they originally indicated that it might be. So maybe they scared each other and decided that they would play nice. But it was very striking in terms of the difference in tone at the end of the session as opposed to the beginning of the session.
the Senate in particular has been as collegial as I've ever remembered it. There's certainly floor fights and arguments on certain bills, but not to the extent the Senate has not gone late into the evenings, which is usually an indication that there's things that are very controversial. And their budget, the original operating budget that the Senate's version passed, was in excess of 40 votes. So, a large percentage of the minority party voted for the budget. And that's because in the Senate, the minority party has been given a lot more input into the budget. But interestingly, the budgets were really, when they were introduced, they're only about $350 million apart of a $70 billion budget, right? So if you just think logically, $350 million in separation in the Senate from what the House did resulted in a much more bipartisan vote. So just kind of an interesting observation.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for all your hard work.
For sure. And then we'll do this. I had Gina put me on for next Tuesday. We'll do this one more time and we'll do the budget stuff at that point and update you on all those things. And then we'll take a rest. So
Okay. Sounds good.
thank you all. We'll
Thank
see you soon. Bye.
Okay. Next, that's going to take us to Justin Johnson.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just have a few housekeeping items and some requests for the board to update, reflect some changes for some of our off cycles. So don't be alarmed with the 25 attachments. That is informational. I know it wouldn't be community services if I didn't also give at least a 10 or 15 packet item. So we'll start off with just a change. This is a perfunctory change for our bylaws. We saw this in the same way with our BHAB. We need to update the name, and we're now catching up to a lot of these documents. All of these must go to the board for review. So the biggest change in our DDAB, which is our Developmental Disabilities Board bylaws, are the name, Community Services, instead of Community Housing, Services and whatever, CHCD, Community Housing and, I haven't even
Already forgotten about it.
yeah, exactly. So we're moving all of that extraneous language and updating it with the CSD. And then they did make a slight change to the meeting requirements. Currently, they're meeting on a bi-weekly basis. That's a little bit too excessive for their meeting because they don't have agenda topics to cover. They're requesting at minimum that it be changed to a quarterly meeting and then ad hoc as needed. Currently, the need is reflective basically when contracts come up or there is a change or there's a need due to some change statutorily that the board needs to have some advice on. But what we're really seeing is most business can be completed in a quarterly basis. So the two major changes we're requesting is that we update it to allow for the bylaws to reflect name change and meeting schedule. And that should be up for the consent agenda in a week. All right, next one. SEBRA. So we received an update to the SEBRA contract, which is our Community Behavioral Health Rental Assistance Program. This is a contract to the Department of Commerce. In July, they carried over a contract and put it under us. Because we did so well, they wanted us to do more. So we have $1.5 million received by the Department of Commerce, and we assumed additional contract amount, which was delegated to Catholic Charities. When they delegated that to us, at the time they gave us a certain amount of money, that contract was already in place, we just continued it. But that need has been increased in Spokane County. So there was a need to shift funds from unallocated portions and from unused portions from other regions to Catholic Charities to cover housing support, long-term subsidies for Catholic Charities. So that's the major change here. We're just shifting monies that were originally actually assigned to administrative costs to housing subsidies. So it's a greater response to the need for individuals and a lessening for the administrative costs that we assume would be much higher. So we're requesting an off-cycle for this. July 1, when we update this contract for that next state cycle, this will be reflective of that change, so we won't have to make these. Again, this is just perfunctory because when we assumed it, we assumed that the state had done that in reflection. That was not the case. So you'll see that in the consent agenda in a week as well. Again, all of the money going out to our contract providers as indicated. Next slide. And you can kind of see here who they are now. We have Rural Resources, which was new, Catholic Charities, and CARES, our Counseling Recovery Center for Spokane County, and then Pend Oreille County Counseling Services for the supportive services in Pend Oreille. We anticipate, I might be coming back in July to say we may expand further in Adams County, but providers taking on additional responsibility with the least amount of administrative support has been a challenge, so convincing providers is still on our agenda. But that's future. Next slide. And here's the fun part. The annual compliance training and review documents. So I'm going to try to go through this quickly because we did this last year. We do it every year. And I just want to preface this with we passed our state audits with flying colors, the only ASO to get a perfect score in the state of Washington. So that should preface all of this. When you hear about all of this, we have a really strong and robust compliance review. But it does mean a lot of documents. So part of our contractual requirements are for Medicaid and for the non-Medicaid state funding. So there are certain things we must put into place to ensure that there's compliance. Some of you are aware of that in terms of having to submit to the state conflict of interest at data stations. We got that all cleaned up, so thankfully that doesn't and will not come back. The state did. They tend to be a little bit more aggressive in areas than they should be, but good. I mean, they're trying to monitor things. So you'll see that on the Medicaid side for both the 2023 year and 2024, we completed risk analysis. This includes all funding for compliance and services and for our data systems and integrity. This means that if something was to fail, this is similar to what our IT does for Spokane County, there's a backup plan to ensure that there's disaster recovery to support individuals because all of their treatment service and billing is all encoded into our Rangery system. So we run an annual test of that. We also run an annual review. Those days went through with flying colors. On our compliance and our fraud, waste, and abuse, again, that is a really clear and standard practice, sometimes a little more aggressive. We're very compliant in our systems. We did identify some key areas that were potential risk areas. Again, not at all a risk, just we always look at potentials. One of those is the ASO is required to fund services on the non-Medicaid side with available resources. So there is a potentiality that if we ran out of general state fund dollars, that individuals on the voluntary side would lose those services and individuals on the involuntary would be prioritized. contractually we're required to ensure involuntary and then within resources. And I want to note this, Spokane County is one of only 3 ASOs that actually do voluntary services and fund those. That includes King County. It's because we've been very mindful of how funded services are and utilizing every resource available. So that's the benefit that our region has that others don't have. We do fund quite a bit, but costs have increased dramatically with the involuntary services, including hospitalizations. We've seen a year-over-year increase. And they're already negotiating for higher rates. So I'm pretty good at negotiating to a point where we feel comfortable, but that's one of those, it's always a year out because we don't get the claims up to a year after the service is provided because we require them to build third party and other resources. So sometimes our liability is, we have to project a year past the date of services, and we're always trying to be cautious of that. So that was one area, again, it's a risk only to the individuals receiving voluntary services, but I think we've mitigated that through other resources. Otherwise, no other identified risk was identified for the compliance portion and sharing services. For the care side, the only risk that we identified, this was a carryover from previous years, was how we incorporate individual feedback for services. That's an incorporated part of quality review and control mechanisms, meaning people can share their feedback on services. We integrated that into our system, so that risk was removed. But it does rely on the individual inputting through the staff member. And of course, you can always say that's a risk because did they input it wrong or incorrectly? So we did identify that there are mechanisms of control to prevent any misuse of that, but we did have to identify it in our systems of control. Otherwise, no other risk factors were identified in that compliance piece as part of our review. And again, as our disaster recovery, we have a really robust one. We work very closely with the Spokane County systems as well as internal. We have separate systems for backing up our data, which is done in compliance with state standards and industry standards. So at this point, again, no risks were significantly identified unless there was both a lightning storm, someone tripped over a wire, and then we had an earthquake. If those all occurred at once, then yes, I think all data would be at risk. But short of that, and an act of God, we've indicated that there are systematic protections in place. So after all of that, including our robust review of conflict of interest across all staff and training, next slide, you'll see that all of our staff are required to do annual trainings to that effect. Next slide. And we complete the work plans to that effect. You can go through it. It's exhaustive, but again, through all of our audits, we've passed those with flying colors. That is really a high-level, down and dirty view. Any questions on our training compliance documents, work plans, or risk management final reports?
You covered it very well, so thank you, Justin.
Yes, it's not that exciting. And I appreciate everyone riding along on that very boring ride with me. Like I said, I feel we have a very compliant system, so no worries there. We do want to put forward a request for the board to approve something just as an addendum to this. We have the Skrills meeting next week, and this will be coming forward to the commissioners on the consent agenda. It's just the agenda for that Skrills.
Yes. Do we have the agenda? Because
Yes.
we have it under miscellaneous to bring up,
Yes.
but I wanted you to bring it up now, just so. So anyway, so yes, so it's an approval of the agenda.
It's in our packet.
There we go.
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll pull it up now
It's just on our consent agenda then. Next week, no, today.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, unfortunately, when we have to reach out to other commissioners and municipalities, the tight turnaround for these makes it challenging to get feedback. And then we did make updates in the last meeting to look at timeframes. We did not make changes to the time. We'll be doing that on the next one. So we've been doing this at 2:30 to 4:30, so that has people stay late. It had to do with people traveling from out of region because we do most of it Zoom with the state. That needed to be reflective of change. So you'll see that in the next cycle, but in this one we keep the 2:30 to 4. So Commissioner, I really appreciate sticking with us at the end of the day on a Friday. So that's a major change you'll see on the next cycle of quarterly meetings, but otherwise,
because we're gonna move it to 10:30.
yes. so that there is a better availability of schedule.
Yeah, maybe I had an appointment that I had scheduled out a long time that I can't
Yes.
reschedule, so thank you.
Yes, again, trying to be more reflective of your guys' very busy schedules. Major topic agenda updates here. Department of Commerce will be giving updates. We've been mentioning this. They pushed out behavioral health facilities grants, which require the ASO and the county to give letters of support. We expressed some concern that we were asked to write letters of support for things that ultimately we had no ability to justify as being needed, and or what is the validity of whatever their plan is, their business plan to put that in place, and sustainability. So in work with Scott and with Kat, I did have letters saying that we as a Spokane County support any partnership or communication, but we stop short of supporting any sort of business plan or other requests by these organizations, so far as that the requests did not come from the board themselves, or have indicated that they have a business plan to put to the board for approval. So again, wanted to show that we were committed to partnering, but part of that was, why are they doing so many and why didn't we get a notice? So we're trying to get Department of Commerce to come to the meeting and provide an update. Who's expected, because so many grants went out in the last 3 years, but we haven't seen those come to fruition, except for the ones that the board are aware of. And we've seen like 12 or 13 come through again. We'd like to know what's going on in the region. So they'll be giving a report out on that. And then the Healthcare Authority is going to give an update on some legislative bills. Again, you were mostly aware of those. One of the big ones was the 988 NRCL. That was actually a big one that we supported because we wanted to maintain control and local voice for how our 988 and RCL. We're unique. We have a very great partnership with our RCL and 988. And we've been asking for a year to put a plan forward that I drafted to try to transition, and they've been halting us on it. So it's just better communication and better engagement. They're gonna come talk about that. Then I'll be giving updates on just the OAC and what we've been doing to the partners. The initiatives for 2024, which is really what the board's already aware of, but more for the region to be aware of it. And then what that means in a greater sense on how we'll be implementing the RCL at 90-day transition once that bill passes, which is the Gross Subsidy House Bill 6251. So, if the board has any questions on that? No. All right, well, let's go for it in consent agenda for approval. Excellent. Any other questions? Do want to make one plug. We'll be meeting internally with the leadership team to talk about opiate dollars. I know this is something that we've been hearing a lot in the community. Tomorrow, we hope to give a better direction on some of the planning, especially with how some new money came forward that Heather seems to surprise me at every week. The board was provided by Scott. So we hope to get that whole team together to get a plan forward so that we can present it to the board with a more strategic goal on how we believe the best moving forward is. So that tomorrow should at least give us some guidance at the direction of Scott and the team.
And we'll bring those back through our strategic planning session. We've got some more updates. Kind of a follow-up to the last time that we had Justin had come in and share the slide deck overview with them.
Will that include, like, how many years you'll have an outline of each project that we would use opioid settlement dollars for, and then like, what are the different funding sources that match, and how long we think it'd be sustainable to continue funding, or where the gaps are in other funds, like we've talked about for federal funds, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
Kind of like a financial plan is also a programmatic outline.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good charter for the group to look at, is if there are longer term, beyond 1 year, how might we fund it either through opioid dollars or other sources of dollars, and whether it's an upfront or whether it's an ongoing sort of thing, yeah.
We'll need that kind of information to apply for any earmarks anyway.
Yep.
Because they'll want to know what's our sustainability plan.
And the Crisis Stabilization Center expansion with the substance use side of it might be one of those items that would be a longer term sort of monetary.
I mean, I was just thinking of the chart that we have of when all the different settlement dollars are going to be coming in over the next 10, 12 years. So we know we have money coming in each year from different settlement accounts.
Yeah.
So, how much of that are you recommending us that we use for the first couple of years of these projects, I guess, would be helpful.
And some of those still are unknown. We've got, as you see in the chart, for a couple of them, we know what the 15-year buy year is gonna be. Others, we only know from what we received to date. So there's just kind of guesstimates on future ones. Some of them are just, we're gonna get them for 2 years and that's it, they're done. But to the best of what we know, we'll incorporate that in.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next that's gonna take us to Mike McLaughlin and Vicki, Auditor Vicki Dalton.
Good morning. We're here to talk about several different projects up in elections. These are being funded through the Secretary of State's office, through security money that was appropriated by the legislature a couple of years ago. So Mike will go into the details.
So the Secretary of State has a program for information security funds, which is $80,000 that they've allocated to each county. That's what we're asking for approval to spend for that, so we don't have to come back to you. So we sent in approvals for 3 projects so far. They sent them back, so we're asking for approval for those and then additional projects as we get. So how it works is the state we have to spend the money and bill the state by June 30th of each year to use the $80,000. They reimburse us. The projects that we have so far is an ID card printer for observers for security and tracking of those. That'll be about $4,200. An intrusion detection system for the tabulation and counting center area. That's about $4,200. And about $45,000 in IT improvements that came from the IT department. It includes a new dedicated, a backbone strand to the elections, a new that'll be isolated just for elections, nothing else, so they can track that a little better. A new switch and a USB formatter, so we can have our own formatter to do USB sticks securely. That's about $45,000. So.
Questions for Mike? So these are just grants from the Secretary of State's office, and then there's some additional ones that may be coming in as well.
Well, they allocated it's not really a grant, it's a reimbursement. So they already allocated $80,000 to the counties to use it, so that's what each project you have to submit to the state, they approve, and you spend the money and bill the state back for that, the project. So that's what is going through it all, that's what was determined through the grants, they have to record it, so that's as sort of a grant, but it's not really a grant. It's just
We don't have to apply and wait for the award. Basically, the legislature said, here's the money. The Secretary of State said, okay, every county gets this much money. All you have to do is submit your projects for reimbursement. So there's no application process, just submission is all.
This is on the agenda for next week.
Next week.
Okay.
The intrusion detection system that you're buying, I assume that's like hacking, it'll immediately let you know if someone's trying.
It's physical.
Oh, for the building.
For the it's
Oh.
for the counting center, it's not the whole
Oh.
building, it's just the secure area where the ballots are, the tabulation system, and
Okay.
that, so it's gonna be located in the
Physical
back.
entry,
Physical entry,
not virtual entry or hacking. Oh,
Right, that's what they do that's part of what the IT portion is to dedicate the line for just elections. So they
Okay.
can monitor that a little bit more and it won't be a shared line with the whole building.
And just a reminder that the tabulation system is not connected to the internet. Tabulation itself is fully contained in one room, only talks to itself. isn't connected to the county network, isn't connected to the internet. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, next it's gonna take us to Heather.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning I have the Justice Assistance Grant for the City of Spokane Police Department. This is their 2022 contract. Everybody was still spending 19 and 20s funds. We actually received these funds in the end of 2022 is when the board actually accepted them. So we didn't get to the contract till towards the end of 23, just because everybody was already spending the previous funds. We actually sent this to the city in about October of 23. It just took them that long to get it back to us. So it is scheduled for next week for your approval. This contract's for $96,850, and they are using it for ballistic door panels. Any questions?
I'm not seeing any.
That's it on that one.
Okay. Thank you. We're gonna just run a little ahead of schedule now. So I don't know. Oh, it's here. Okay. Welcome, so you must be Mark Norton.
Yes, I am.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So we are just a little ahead of schedule, so we will let you go ahead and get started.
Great, thanks. I sent over a slide deck. I don't know if that's, there we go. All right. Thanks, everybody.
And you're welcome to sit. You-
Oh, okay,
Don't
thanks.
worry.
My name's Mark Norton. I'm the Executive Director for the Northwest I-90 Manufacturing Alliance. I don't know if you may or may not be familiar with our group, so it's part of what I'm gonna go through here. And we're looking to talk to you about possible sponsorship for our group. And I'll get into that in just a minute here, but we can direct your attention up there. Our mission, we are essentially an industry group. We're 501 C6, so we're a nonprofit group. And our whole mission is really to support manufacturing in this area, and also our coverage goes all the way into North Idaho and even Western Montana. We're also the primary industry liaison for the Tech Hub, which I'm sure you've all heard about. And so we're affiliated with that, and part of that is we serve as a kind of a convener and a connector for manufacturing groups. We've been in existence for about 10 years. We used to be called the Inland Northwest Aerospace Consortium. Maybe somebody might know that name more. And our mission was at that time to be really focused on the aerospace industry. Last year we rebranded. We thought we could better serve manufacturers in the area by having a wider focus. So now we are kind of our four primary sectors are still aerospace, space and satellite. We have a lot of members doing work for Blue Origin, SpaceX, people like that. Medical devices, and part of that is to have this connection with the bioscience cluster. They're primarily focused on pharma, so we're coming alongside on the medical device piece. We provide kind of a broader set of capabilities. And then energy as well. So our membership right now, we're about 40 members. Oh, could we go to the next slide, please? So that shows you a little bit more how we define advanced manufacturing. So it's all business to business. Really, we're a network primarily of what you could call specialized contract manufacturers. So we serve the OEMs. So we serve the Blue Origins, the Boeings, the SpaceXs, those types of companies. And I would say the majority of our businesses, the people that we serve is not in Spokane, but obviously we're providing jobs to the area. So those are kind of our four sectors that we serve. Next slide, please. Well, this is a lot. I'd be happy to provide this to you, but if you look at the different things that we're doing, obviously we're helping support the Tech Hub. That's fairly new. We collaborate with all the economic development groups in the area, so we serve as kind of a supply chain expert to come alongside, say when GSI or the airport or whatever is trying to court an OEM to get them to locate in Spokane. I will attend those meetings. I'll talk about the supply chain. I take them on tours of some of the factories here to help them understand what's available in terms of the supply chain to support them if they decide to locate here. And we work both with, so we work with Greater Spokane, the Valley Chamber, a number of these groups. Also, we support the Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council as well. And even over in Montana, Missoula Partnership over there as well. So we have a pretty broad geographic scope. Workforce development is a real major focus for us. I don't know if you've heard about the Manufacturing Institute at East Valley High School. So we got a $200,000 grant from Commerce a year before last, I think. And we donated that to East Valley, and we worked with Wade Larson there to totally renovate that. And now we've created basically a track for high school students there at East Valley. And they can learn welding, they can learn CNC machining, CAD design, 3D printing, program management. So, and we want to replicate that model. We have 10 other school districts now interested in that. So that's our kind of our K-12 piece. We also have been supportive of the engineering program at Ferris. I don't know if you folks have heard about that, but Gary Gillespie's in there. Worked closely with him and had him present to our members. And then we are working with the higher education institutes here as well. So Gonzaga, Whitworth, Eastern, WSU, all of those, trying to develop internship programs and capstone projects for engineering students. And also consulting on curriculum. So we're making sure that we have an alignment between what the course curriculum is for engineering and what industry actually needs. So we're lots of collaboration on that piece. We also work with the apprenticeship groups, AJAC and Machinist Institute, and that's all about trying to help them get more embedded in manufacturing here so we have a better pipeline for workforce development. So those are some of the initiatives that we're working on that side. We'll be, our next event is actually, we're working with Universal Robotics, and we'll be having an event next month at Spokane Community College, and that's a partnership that we're planning on developing. We'll also have University of Idaho there as well, who has robotics and automation practice they're developing. So we'll be doing that event next month, and we're doing a lot of that kind of work. Next slide, please. And then this kind of talks a bit about our supply chain capabilities. So see if a company is looking at town, this is one of the slides that we'll bring up and we'll talk about all the different types of capabilities that we have here. We have a pretty much 360-degree offering that we can bring to people. We can do everything from electronics manufacturing to sheet metal to casting and all of it. So that's our mission. Are there questions from anybody? No. Okay. So we are looking to get new sponsors. That's new for us this year. We have up to now been supported just by membership dues, and we try and keep those low for companies. It's a tiered structure that we have, and if we just don't, we're needing more money to be able to keep up and do more programming. So we're making an ask for $20,000, and that will help us to increase our staffing, a little bit more hours we can put on there so we can do more of this kind of work. Quite honestly, right now, I'm putting a lot of volunteer work time as well, because this is a passion. I've been the chair for 6 years and executive director this year. And my background's been in industry. I've been in the area for a long time, traveled all over the US, but really been focused on this region now. And this is my primary mission as well as consulting. My team also did the report for the Washington State Legislature on aviation and space last year, 65-page report. If you're interested in that, I'd be happy to send that to you. It was a complete look at the ecosystem in Washington State, looking not just at commercial space, but also space and satellite, green energy, alternative fuels, all that type of thing. We delivered that to the legislature. Legislature benchmarked really against other states all across the country. Because we've gone from number 1 in terms of aerospace attractiveness in Washington State to number 7 in the last couple of years. And a lot of that's due to the competition that we're seeing from lower cost of business places, like Texas, the Southeast, and so forth. And also, Boeing struggles have been a factor there. So that is what we're asking of you to consider, and happy to answer questions, or you've got my contact information if you'd like to email me. And I appreciate your time.
Thanks for the information.
Sure.
How's your engagement on the Tech Hub going? What's kind of the latest on that? And
Yeah, well, we're, as you may know, we submitted at the end of this last month, so we're kind of in waiting mode right now. My team, for the work we did for the legislature, Tech Hub was a major focus. We've looked at those already. In fact, we ended our report saying recommending Tech Hubs as one of the main things to develop business and grow business industry in the state. So I think it's looking really good right now. I think this is, maybe it is public knowledge, but we're going to move ahead with the Tech Hub regardless of whether we get the grant. There's enough private funding and mass behind it that we can go ahead and do that. So that is pretty exciting. As some of you may know, we had more than 60 letters of support from Tier 1 aerospace manufacturers. So that includes not only Boeing, but people like Blue Origin, SpaceX, Crane, Safran, you name it. And so it's pretty exciting. I mean, we feel really good about our position. We have partnered with Idaho. In fact, our relationship with the Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council, Jenny there was one of our, very key to this. So we have a 2-state proposition that we're doing, which is most of the other applications are single states. We feel that's a big strategic advantage. And then of course we have a building already out West Plains. So I feel like if you're on that committee evaluating that proposal, you're saying, well, they can take this money and actually use it for operations. Whereas some of these people are probably going to use most of that money just to build the structure. So we feel like we've got a really strong case. And it'll be amazing for Spokane and for the supply chain as well. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I do see Commissioner French has raised his hand, so we'll let Commissioner French.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and great job, Mark. As many of you know, I have the privilege of sitting on the NEMA board, and as Mark indicated, there are some incredible opportunities that we are in a position to take advantage of. We are one of the 5 largest aerospace clusters in the country, and with that and the partnerships that NEMA has created with the high schools, there is a path forward for high school graduates to be able to get really, really good paying jobs without having to incur really, really high debt. They can get certified through the community college and work on our manufacturing floors and be well into 5- and 6-digit salaries. So this is one of those success programs, in my opinion, that the county has been supportive of in terms of the aerospace conference, but because of all the great work they're doing, I think it's worthy of us considering increasing our level of participation with the effort and strengthening the pathways to really good employment for a significant part of our community. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. And that's really what we're about. Manufacturing, as you all know, is really providing really great career paths. We all know, I went to school with people that were not going to college. And we need pathways for them so they're not underemployed in our community and aren't struggling financially. Welders now, in a couple of years, if you're a certified welder, you're going to be making $140,000 a year. And again, no student loan debt. And I think one thing I'd like to mention as part of that is that doesn't preclude them from going back to school and pursuing a degree at a later time. And the other piece here that I think is important to think about is financial equity, because there are kids that simply can't afford to go to school because they can't afford to not be working. So one of the things we've talked about, we're working with community colleges, is the earn to learn type pathway where kids can go be in the workplace, be making the salary, but also be learning at the same time. And so I think those are programs that are really important to the community, and they can help lift up some of the people that are, would otherwise be struggling.
So a couple of questions I have would be, with the ask, it's who else, what other sponsorships have you gotten so far or not, and who else you've been asking? And then also kind of, you're saying your financial structures change, so I mean, I guess I kind of, want to know what that looks like to know what the investment would be doing.
Well, prior to our restructuring, we only had one position, which was the executive director. We now have an executive coordinator as well. And our total budget was under $100,000 for the whole year for everything that we do, all the program and everything. So we run pretty. Now I transitioned from board chair to executive director this last year. And I'm salaried for 2 days a week, and so is our executive coordinator. I put in, just honestly, a lot more time than that. This is kind of a passion project for us. Our sponsors now, we have BECU, S3R3 is also a sponsor. We have, and I can get you a list, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. GSI, Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council, Wagstaff Engineering. Those are kind of off the top of my head. To be happy to provide you a list.
No, that would be nice, and kind of the dollar amounts to see what people are contributing, and again, kind of what the need is and all of that. So, because I know we've sponsored in the past, I don't know,
Wasn't it like
It's
a
been the-
conference, an annual?
Well, it's been the I-90 Aerospace conference. Are you connected
That's
with
ours.
them?
That's our event.
Oh, that's your
Yeah.
event too.
And we have another one coming up this May as well.
so.
Yeah,
in the past-
keep in mind that the previous name was NWAC, and that's what we're probably most familiar with in terms of our budget allocations, and it was to the aerospace conference.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
So, no, that's fine. Randy was just saying it was $2,500 is what we've done, and I think we have that in the
We
budget.
do have it in the budget also.
So we do have that as of.
Which we appreciate that too.
So, okay. No, I guess, yeah, I'd like to just see some more information as to who and how much and all of that
Yeah, be happy to
decision.
give you more formal accounting there so you can take a look at it. And it's always a little bit hard to measure, quantify that economic impact of what we're doing. But I believe surely in the workforce piece, we can show a lot of progress. As I mentioned, that $200,000 grant we got structured in a way that we did not charge administrative fees. So that whole thing was donated to Teamster Mountain. We donated up the administrative piece of that ourselves.
Thank you. Commissioner French?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So one last thought, and, I'm not in that promotion state yet, but I think it's worthy of pursuing. And we've had this conversation before as we look at the work we've done with the construction trades and the folks that are, getting out of the time that they spend at the end out at Geiger. We've looked at what are other industries that we could provide training in. And I think advanced manufacturing is one of those opportunities that offers the same kind of salary and career opportunities that construction trade does. But Lord knows we've got jobs now that are searching for candidates to apply and stuff. So that's the other opportunity. That's just planting a seed. I don't know that we need to develop it right now, but just that's another opportunity for us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Should I send that information to Victoria then? Would that be the best?
I'll forward it on.
Great, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'd say Victoria or Gina is our clerk of the board, so. just make sure it gets to all the commissioners then. So, great.
Any other questions I can answer? Appreciate your time very much, and we do appreciate the existing support that you've given us for the conference as well.
No, thank you, and thank you for coming
Thank you
this
very
morning.
much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next, that's gonna take us to Dave Ellis, Under Sheriff Dave, or Chief Dave Ellis, sorry. Get my titles right here. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, how are you guys?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
So I think we've got two things on the agenda here. One is the approval of a sole source declaration for repairs on a lot of helicopters. We have reviewed with legal and with purchasing a sole source declaration for Northwest Helicopters to conduct repairs on one of the UH-1H helicopters. And we bring that for your consideration. And a little background on Northwest Helicopters is the only service center in Washington State and in North Idaho that works on uncertificate aircraft. And so we've had a good relationship with them in the past. They've done good work for us, and they are what we think is the most reasonable solution for many repairs.
And the UH-1H is which helicopter?
The Huey, yeah.
Huey, okay. Okay. Any questions on that?
Second thing was an update on the auction process for selling the other Huey. And so I just got an update from purchasing today, this morning, that they're going to utilize gov.com or govdeals.com for their auction process. They charge a 5% commission for their work. And I know they're working with legal to bring a resolution before you to move forward with that if you so desire.
Okay. Because I was confused, so I was asking Scott this. So when we say it's the Bell helicopter, so does Bell make the Hueys as well as the other
Yeah.
helicopters?
Yep, exactly. So they make both the OH-58s and the UH-1s, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so then this is, so the first one is sole sourcing for repairs on the Huey that we're keeping.
Yes.
And this one is then gonna be for surplusing the Huey that we're gonna put to auction.
Absolutely, yep.
You said 5% commission. Is that out of the sale price, or is there a premium that the purchaser pays on top of what they bid it up to?
Yeah, I've taken it as coming out of the sales price, but I
Okay.
have to confirm that.
Okay, because auctions are usually done different ways. Sometimes, like, just for instance, say it sells for 100,000. Do we then get 95, or do we get the 100,000 and the buyer has to then pay 5,000 on top of it as the purchase premium that goes to the auction house? So two different ways that it works.
In talking with,
Do you wanna go or you want Randy to go?
well, Randy can correct me if I say it wrong. In talking with purchasing last week, they indicated that the way these government auction platforms are set up is that the buyer of the surplus equipment is the one who's responsible for the commission to the auction house.
Okay.
Not us. So if we sell it for 100,000, we get 100,000 and the buyer pays the excess. Is that?
I heard a different story this morning.
Okay, then we will get clarity on that.
Clarification.
That was what I heard last week, so we'll get some more and share that back with the commissioners.
Either way, it is what it is.
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's different, I mean, are we sure this is the route we want to, this is the group we want to sell it through, or?
You know, I've deferred that to purchasing and
Okay.
legal on it. I know that they had looked at another group that's charging at 10%.
Okay.
But beyond that.
Yeah, commissioners, when I spoke with purchasing this morning, the other group we typically use, Public Surplus, does charge 10% for this service. So
Okay.
this does reduce our cost.
Okay. I mean,
Correct, and I
I
understand
mean,
your
my-
add-on.
no, it's not that I'm necessarily concerned. I mean, what's really gonna drive the sales price is how well the company markets that we're auctioning this particular helicopter. So, I mean, are we confident this is an organization or this is an outfit that is gonna get that word out there to I assume that the pool of potential purchasers of a helicopter is only so big. Are those people going to know that this helicopter is being auctioned? You know, I mean, when you look at, I mean, there's tons of outfits out there that auction antiques, that auction sports cars, that auction boats, that auction, I mean, does this outfit specialize in helicopters that they can maximize the sales price?
Commissioner, I don't know the answer to
Yeah.
that question right now. We can get that for you.
Okay.
I do know that they're gonna put a minimum bid on the auction.
Okay,
And my understanding, when my conversation this morning, is that minimum bid is larger than what it was just appraised at. Is that, am I correct on that?
My understanding is that the minimum would be like $900,000.
oh, okay, so, which is what we wanted to get out of, okay. Okay, and I'm glad there's a minimum bid, I mean, cause that's
Yeah.
the risk, if you don't have the right people that show up to that auction or, you know, on that auction site, I mean, we don't want someone to get a steal on our helicopter, so.
Very good points. I think the two things is, yeah, they do have the minimum bid on it.
Okay.
And I know that when we started this process, they had a specific aircraft appraiser doing nothing but aircraft. Give a lot of detailed information about it. So I have a sense that they do at least have some background in aviation and that kind of stuff. So hopefully that addresses some of your concerns.
Okay.
Any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
For sure. I asked Dave just to cover the release of the title area, the release from GSA. Could you just share that with the commissioners as well?
Yeah, so we've got complete approval from GSA and from the government to auction it. They've memorialized an email and the transfer documents and all that stuff, so we are good to go on this.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess, before you go, so have we put the order in on the new one, right?
No, we're waiting for that. There's a couple things on that to bring to your attention. We are facing a potential price increase as they go into the next model year, so it's something that if you guys are in a position to do so, I would recommend doing it. They say that potential price increase could be 3 to 5%. And then the other update on that is Air 2, which was our backup patrol aircraft. We had to take offline with engine issues, and we are going to decommission it. It is not in a position where we want to invest money into it, especially with the aircraft coming online. So we are going to be down to one aircraft in the summertime until the new one comes in.
Okay. So when are we gonna put the order in on it? I guess I thought we already had.
We would need the commissioners to approve the purchase of that, so we put the order in. We haven't done that yet.
I thought, okay.
Yep.
They are willing to do the zero down.
When is Bell indicating that the price would be going up, or orders placed after a certain period of time?
They haven't given me a firm date, but I get the sense it's within the month.
Okay.
I did want to have one other update for you too. Last time I was here before you, we talked about a grant and the request to look for some additional funding and that kind of stuff. We did receive a grant from Commerce, which will be for $205,000 to be applied towards this new aircraft purchase.
Okay.
We did receive those funds.
And we have the $500,000 earmark.
Correct.
And is there a time frame on that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I kind of thought we agreed to it. I mean, we've debated it a lot, so I thought we had.
We haven't had anything on the agenda yet to approve the acquisition of the new helicopter. One of the things that we were discussing doing is allowing the surplusing to take place so that we understood what the difference between the acquisition price is, how much we're gonna get in the surplus, how much the grants are, so that the commissioners could identify where the delta was gonna be funded from to purchase a new helicopter.
if we're gonna get a 3 to 5% increase, we probably wanna figure this out, so then when does the surplus happen?
Soon as the clarity on the, I think the commissioners are gonna be voting on using Gov Deals this afternoon. No, it's not on yet. Okay, so once the commissioners, once we get on the agenda, the utilization of Gov Deals, then we can line up the notice of public auction in the same time, and then it would be set, I think, 2 weeks after that. So if it's gonna be the 1 week, so so the following, if it's up on the following week's consent agenda, then the public auction will be 2 weeks after that.
So do we need to take it up as by leave today?
I don't think it's ready from what I understood from legal and purchasing. It was intended to come on this week, but they had some additional work they had to do on it. So we're hoping next week.
I'm sure we'll be ready next week. I'm not sure the specifics on what what needed to be finalized on it. I mean, the last I heard, I know that we had all the documentation from the federal government as far as moving forward with it, so I knew it was moving forward.
Okay. So for next week. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, that's gonna then take us to Randy. Heather, can you have two?
I do. Morning, Commissioners. Just wanted to give you an update on the Grants Department. With Arian's departure, we have not filled her spot. So we were at 5 people, we're now down to 4. And as you know, we keep getting more grants, and now we've got a FEMA award. And so we are at the point of failure, I guess, for the Grants Department would be the best way. We're not gonna get things done timely. We're gonna have hard times getting more grants, which of course, we all know we need more federal money and state money to continue operating. So my request would be is that we go back and get a second limited term grants person, because Arian was limited term and we already have another one. We are spending right now about 1.5 FTEs currently on ARP. And as you heard Heather and Jeff talk about yesterday, it's gonna get busier with all the audits and when expenses finally come in. I think we will end up eating up more than 2 people going forward. But so our request is we get another limited term employee to replace Arian. If you do bring back ARP dollars, I would suggest using those dollars to pay for the ARP positions. Currently, neither one is funded by ARP dollars. My understanding anyway, we haven't applied for them. I think we've changed colors of money. Currently, we get reimbursed through our no, we're getting reimbursed today through when we charge back all the other cost allocation. The other thing going forward is I think we're going to need to go from 3 people, which we've been at since 2008, up to 4. I think we need 4 full-time people once we get rid of ARP, just to keep operating, because in addition to all the grants, you know, Ukraine, whatever, Heather has to go around Region 9 and do all the audits for DEM. So she's out traveling, doing those audits. We have a lot of other audits, other departments that we're helping backfill. And it's just gonna keep getting worse. We're paying bills, you know, we're backfilling about a half person for housing on their grants. We're backfilling about a half a person for the sheriff's department. So we are running out of time to get everything done. She can speak to it much better than my rambling. But I do believe we will need to get a 4th full-time person in grants, in addition to 2 limited term people that would expire in 2026 when ARP is done.
So the net increase request to the commissioners are one
One
full-time
full,
ad
one
and
full-time
one limited,
and one limited term.
because we have one limited term right now for
Correct.
ARP.
We lost Arian as a limited term. We did not replace her when she went to Broadlink. So that would get us back to the 2 limited term people we had. So then I'd like to fill that back up and also get an additional full-time for just normal operations. So that's the request.
Questions? Well, I would support, whatever we need to do, because we've gotta be able to manage all of these different pots of money, and, I guess I'm wondering, why didn't we use ARPA money for the term limited position? And is there a way we could, since it's related, just like our, planning staff that we hired, right, for a limited time?
We
Is there a way
chose
we
not
could
to
do
in the
that?
beginning because we have to do timesheets and time and effort certs. And so we did not want to have to do that for each person, like for Jeff's time, for my time, for Randy's time, Tessa's time, everybody's time that would put time towards it. We thought it would just be easier to take our indirect costs and call it square. However, that doesn't mean that we can't for people that are solely dedicated to ARP.
We're getting it, we're not getting it through the traditional time and effort approach. We're getting it through our indirects. So it's just not being applied directly to the grants positions.
Which we've changed the color of money on the indirects. So, we've given that to other functions, so it's not supporting the grants positions, which is why we could, just for those 2 people, I wouldn't do it for all the others. I wouldn't wanna do it for myself, but for those working directly, those 2 limited time positions. If we have more money that does come back to us, I would suggest we use some of that towards this.
So I guess for me, I'd like to see, just like we do in the supplemental budget process, how much is this really, what's the full cost of it? Yeah, how we're.
The limited term will be full cost with benefits, about $90,000 for that person for a full year. So for the current year, you gotta figure hiring time, you're probably looking best case 8 months of the year.
So I guess what I'd like is on
About
paper,
60,000,
kind of
okay.
to see
I can-
how this really pencils out. Just like, we're
Yep.
asking other departments to do.
We can provide that to you. We can tell you the full-time person would be about 110,000. So between the 2, it's about 200,000 in a full calendar year. Between salary and benefits, so I will provide it on a piece of paper for you.
Cause I think that's the thing that we know we're facing is we gotta look at where, cause we don't have extra ARP dollars right now, so, that's only if our ARP dollars came back, could we charge it directly to them, which I would think we should. And, so it's just, I need to see it kind of penciled out, because as we know, other departments have funding needs as well, and so it's, that's the decision we have to really look at and not look at it a little bit more holistically
Get
than
that to
just
you
one,
this week.
so.
So what you're saying is, we probably couldn't charge it to the ARP till 25 and 26, so we wanna see what for this year, what general fund dollars we would have to come up with for the positions.
Well,
Yeah, because right now we don't have ARP dollars that are sitting there
Right, right, right.
unallocated.
It may be that we can reallocate later this year.
Right. That's-
Commissioners,
But
that
then
would
we'd
be,
have to know that that's, if we're choosing to do this, that's where those dollars go first and foremost as they come back to fund those 2 positions.
Also, understanding you said we need these even after ARP though, right?
one position, we
One
would
of them,
not,
yeah,
we would
so-
not keep the 2 limited term.
Okay.
The current limited term person we do have, I believe her contract expires 12/31 of 26.
But there will be some ongoing.
Yes, I would say going forward, I mean, we've just got FEMA now that we have to deal with.
Right, but FEMA will go away in the future
will,
as well,
And
so.
I consider that part of the limited term.
So I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. And I'm trying to like look at that versus we don't have prosecutors right now. And that's costing our system money. You know, so it's, I mean, it's, and we'll get that presentation next week. So I mean, so it's in my mind, I need to be looking at all of that. As we know, Ashley's like, oh, we gotta get juvenile detention. You know, so I'm trying to I need to be able to make my case for where the money should go.
Thank you. That's all we have.
Okay, thank you.
Trade spots.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay, Brandy's joining Heather now. Very good.
Last up, so we have the Title VI plan and the accomplishments and goals report for the 23-24 timeframe. For the plan itself, the only updates we made were to the organizational charts for both Public Works and the Sheriff's Office. And then we also updated the grants and contracts specialist individual that was previously vacant when we did the prior report. And so we updated that individual's name in the report, in the plan. Other than that, the plan itself did not change. It was previously approved by WSDOT and by Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, so both have approved that plan. And then Brandy will fill you in on the accomplishments and goals report, which prepared by Public Works.
Yeah, so each year we're required to do an accomplishment report, which is more of all of our accomplishments and how we followed the Title VI requirements, completing those accomplishments. So that report this year includes right-of-way acquisition for like 57th and Freya, as well as our little Spokane project up north. And so it shows that we didn't adversely impact any specific race or language and that type of criteria. So it shows by map all the demographics for each of those property areas. And then we also report on all of our contracts, where we had contracts, where we did transportation projects, where we did transportation plans, and how specific areas were impacted. And then we just provide a report each year to the OEO office, and that's what this year's report will show. We also are required to show any specific goals for the next year, so that this next year it's reporting opportunities, so just timeliness of reporting and then attending all available WSDOT training. So that's all I have.
So this will be on the docket next week for you guys to approve, and then we will go ahead and submit the final documents to both Washington State DOT and Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
Any questions? Thanks, very good, thank you. Okay, then I think that's gonna take us to miscellaneous, and Scott Chesney, I see you're here. So, because we already covered A on the agenda for the Shrillis meeting, or how do you say it? Shrillis, there we go, it's just so much fun.
You're the chair, you get to decide.
Exactly. So, Scott, welcome.
Good morning. We are here, we had briefed this for you. This is about the land capacity analysis methodology. We briefed this to you on January 9th. It is on your agenda for this afternoon. It is only the methodology as recommended to you from the steering committee. And just briefly, it's the tool we use to assess the available land that is currently in the urban growth area that we have to account for as we are looking to grow by 100 to 120,000 new residents over the next 20 years. This methodology looks at vacant land, underutilized and unused areas. It cuts off those that are unbuildable or generally considered unbuildable. And then it has a market factor at the end to reflect that some pieces of land, even though they are ready to go, from maybe a landowner that is historically unwilling to develop, and we discount those as being unavailable for that development. Differently this year, it takes into account past development patterns, which was a criteria added after the 2016 version where the city of Spokane had a large allocation intending to go into infill development that they were not able to provide. And they recognize that, so they're being careful to not overreach this year. And it also recognizes existing infrastructure. Those infill projects are desirable, but in places, Lower South Hill, West Central neighborhood, the existing infrastructure may simply not accommodate a dramatic increase in residential density for infill. So those are added criteria into the methodology. Where it goes from here, we're currently working on that for our own assessment of our own responsibilities. The cities are doing the same. They will be reporting that back to the steering committee, likely at the May steering committee meeting. And we should have a sense then of balancing the OFM mid-range population number, land available, and that'll tell us how we would need to modify our urban growth area boundaries. And we would expect that decision probably in the third quarter. So happy to answer any questions about the methodology.
I was skimming through and noticed that part of this is the cities and towns make a future capacity projection. Is that right?
Yep.
And it seems that they are being suggested or told that that should be based on current zoning laws. Is that correct? So for the city, would that include some of the recent changes they've made around middle housing? Would be current, would it be as of the date of 2026 or as of today?
Today.
Okay. So if the city decided tomorrow it wanted to change the zoning on, or revisit its corridors plan, that wouldn't be factored into the method.
At this point, the decision has to be made using the development regs that are on the books today.
So just as a follow-up to that, then I guess I'm assuming though that changes will be, generally, changes are made almost every year to city or county land use policies or sometimes to development regulations. So if you run the numbers though, we may find that we need to make different changes to accommodate the growth, especially around affordable housing.
Yes.
So I guess I wonder, how does that play in with the affordable housing piece? And obviously there's not an easy answer.
No, there is not. There are lots of moving parts in this cycle. In addition to the overall county population projection, which has been provided by OFM.
Right.
And is reflected in the 2022 numbers, which we all agree we're using that basis. We are in the process of splitting that allocation now out by cities, towns, county, and rural. Steering committee will see the first draft of that at their March meeting. In addition, we have to allocate housing by income groups this year. And so it's 30% area median income, 40 or 50, 80%. That equally has to be distributed along with the population. And also in theory, there's a jobs classification that has to be allocated as well. The jobs is a little easier because it tends to go to areas that have established industrial bases like the industrial park, West Plains. But yeah, it's an iterative process. There'll be this first allocation, which is based on past trends. And that's the one that showed several of the small towns having zero growth because they haven't grown very fast in the last 10 years. That's unreasonable from a planning perspective because we know Medical Lake wants to grow, Cheney wants to grow. So they have to be sort of hand manipulated to say, what does that look like? The allocations here will tell us, using your existing rules, this is what you can accommodate. If, like the county, we're planning to amend and make our zoning and our development regs much more flexible, that will also then be an iterative pattern that we'll work on probably in the early 25 after we get this first allocation done. So the first one is coming up. The second one is kind of the hand massaged version, and then somewhere later we'll be looking at if you're changing your regs and you're already moving that through the system, how does that affect the number we talked about, say, in October of '24? So yeah,
There's
gonna be
another
a moving-
opportunity later in the process to, because you could run all these numbers and figure out that, oh, we don't have enough with current zoning and development regulations to accommodate the amount of affordable housing that we need at different income levels. So we're gonna have to rejigger everything to make sure we can do that over the next 2 years.
And for, in the middle income capacity,
Right.
that's traditionally, platted lands on flat areas outside of the edges of our urban growth area. That's not a given either, because we have to have the capital facilities to support that.
Right.
So just because it looks like it's attached to a UGA, doesn't mean it's going to be an eligible piece of land.
Commissioner French just raised his hand.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So as we've discussed at the steering committee, I think one of the mistakes as a region we made back in 2001 when we adopted our comprehensive land use plan is that we allowed speculation and optimism to overpower reason and logic, and we ended up over allocating a population that could never be achieved. And so we're trying to be much more realistic in this go around, because when you overestimate, you don't achieve it, then you end up distorting the market. And those that suffer the most are those at the lower end of the income spectrum. The other thing that, just need to be aware of, I worked with a number of developers in this region that have tried to allocate a certain percentage of their inventory to low income or entry level housing. And what has ultimately happened is that folks will come in and take advantage of the lower price and buy the product, and then upgrade with granite countertops and hardwood floors and a variety of other improvements to where it's no longer affordable, it's no longer entry level, but it's a heck of a home. So, I don't want to assume that we can control the market. We can certainly set goals, but don't want to be overly optimistic about how much of the market we can control. And then the last thing is, and we've talked about this as steering committee, is that, the state and the city has adopted, higher densities, 4 units per acre, or 4 units per lot for low income housing, but they do not have necessarily the capital facility to support it, especially in the older neighborhoods. And there, in many parts of the city of Spokane, there are deed restrictions against multifamily housing on single family lots. So that also has to be factored into this equation so that we make sure that we get the number right this time, because if we don't get it right, then we end up sending a lot of our housing inventory over to Kootenai County. And now in talking to commissioners over in Lincoln County, they say, thank you very much, because we're seeing a housing boom in Reardon that we didn't ever anticipate, but it's housing that's being displaced out of the Spokane market. So just additional information for your consideration. Thank you.
Another piece of it that kind of goes to what Commissioner Waldrop was saying was, I think at the end of the document, it says, once the capacity in both units and population is generated, it should be compared to the population growth forecast for each jurisdiction, as well as the housing allocation required by House Bill 1220. And then by doing that, the jurisdictions can determine what steps are required by the state to comply. For example, annexation, UGA modifications, and regulation amendments. So is that kind of what you're talking about, that we'll do this analysis and then kind of run it through the filter or the test of that state legislation?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it like I said, it will be an iterative process. We'll go through that several times until the steering committee is comfortable sending something to you as a recommendation.
Just one last question for me. Can you just remind me on the market factor? I saw 30% and 50%. Can you just remind me what the theory is there?
The 30% market factor is for properties within the urban growth area. And that's a kind of a leftover figure from the last LQA, LCA, and generally accepted by FutureWise and others. So we just didn't touch it. We just left it alone. It's an enormous factor in ways, because you go through this fairly detailed assessment, literally parcel by parcel. Is it buildable? How big is it? What can you do? And you say, and there's gonna be 30% less or 30% more. So you have this kind of balloon at the end of your analysis. The 50% was initially mentioned as a factor in the rural areas. We've taken that out of the document because the steering committee doesn't deal with the rural areas. We do exclusively, and so there's no point in having that in the methodology. But the 30% is there, and it provides a lot of wiggle room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, there's an abandoned phone down here.
Uh-oh.
It's me.
Someone will find it.
It's Randy's. Randy's. There we go.
How about that?
Okay, so then that takes us to any other miscellaneous?
Jeff.
Okay. That's right.
Last week, we had briefly discussed GSI and if we're gonna add to their federal agenda. And you had requested that I reach out to Arian, and Ron, actually Arian's on, if you could promote her. Commissioner French, I sent this to your email inbox. I'll send it to you, Ron, if you wanna pull it up. So I sent around a version of this yesterday. Arian and I spent the last little bit of time reworking it. She's actually out of state right now, but did some work remotely. And so you'll see we're not actually making a earmark request, it's a policy statement request. And it's around 1.24 billion that's coming to Washington State in BEAT money. Spokane is actually 5th in the nation based on analyses that show we have over 20,000 unserved locations in our county. That formula would put us up to about 130 million that we'd be eligible for of the 1.24 billion coming to the state. Two requests, one is a short-term extension of ACP funding, which is kind of a bridge program while this other funding takes place. The second request is to encourage our federal delegation to work with the NTIA to quickly approve our funding selection plan to get the money in state on the street. You'll see a letter to Senator Cantwell, and when I passed out, all three women in our federal delegation received the letter. All three offices have confirmed their support, so this would be kind of a reminder to the electeds. We're still hoping that they will push on that. Erin is online. If you have questions, I will quickly defer to her, who can speak better to this. This is due today, so we would, if you want this submitted to GSI, I will forward it to them later today.
Any questions for?
Any follow-up, Arian?
Yeah,
Did I miss
Arian, do you want
anything?
to just speak to it at all?
Jeff, I think you did a great job. As all of you are aware, you can pull the Broadlink thread and go miles and miles and miles, but Jeff and I felt that this were really the top level of issues that we would appreciate the commissioners supporting to best set up Spokane County to receive the funding that is eligible, and that the policies are put into place that happens when the award comes out.
Yeah, and I will just say, when I was back at NACO, I mean, there was a lot of discussion on the extension for the ACP program and wanting people to advocate for it. So I'm happy to have that in there, because that's definitely, they've cut off people applying to that anymore, and know that it's a big issue, so.
So do we have at least 3 people in support of me submitting this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
Thanks for running it down.
Thanks, Arian.
Thanks, Erin.
Mr. French, you unmuted, are you in favor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, so any other miscellaneous items?
If I may, commissioners.
Okay, sorry, I don't know where we're going.
We'll go down to LPC. This is our new purchasing director, Melanie Dickinson. I'd just like to introduce her to everyone. Commissioner Cuney, Commissioner Kearns, Commissioner Waldron, Commissioner Jordan, and Commissioner French is on Zoom.
Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, yes.
Glad to have you.
Thank you. So you just got started this week?
Yes, yesterday.
Okay, very good. Yeah, well, thank you. Happy to have you come and join the team here, so looking forward to working with you. Okay. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. We just have lots of people coming and going. I don't know what we're doing. Okay.
Man, when I see more people coming
So
in, I'm
someone
like,
tell me what's
uh-oh.
next.
I have one quick miscellaneous item. Yesterday afternoon, the victim advocates from our special assault unit let me know that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I thought I would bring it forward for the board, and if the board was amenable to doing a proclamation. I've not yet had a chance to connect with Pat Bell on this, but would connect our victim advocates with him. It would entail, circulating some flyers, posting some flyers primarily in the courthouse, and then wearing, teal ribbons on Mondays in April in support of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So just wanted to bring that forward for the board, and if there's support for that, then I will put our victim advocates in contact with Pat Bell to get all of that set up.
Okay, no, I think that sounds good. I was just at a meeting this morning with the Lutheran Community Services, and they were talking about things that they're gonna be doing during the month. And I let them know that the prosecutor's office may be putting a proclamation forward, so I think we'd wanna make sure we
Sure.
invite them as well.
Sure.
To that, that would be great,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so important.
Yep.
I'm gonna follow up with you on some other comments this morning.
Certainly.
Okay. Then we'll move forward with the proclamation for April, since it's the month of April.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Any other miscellaneous items?
I think we have two, I know of
was
two
gonna say,
exec
we must have some
sessions.
exec sessions.
Two
There's
exec,
lots of
I think they're
people
both.
Somebody's gotta
relatively
speak up.
Well, see y'all later.
What are you doing here, George?
And Matt and Kyle and Wes, it's like,
Yeah, we've got, I think we have two, I'm aware of two quick, relatively quick exec sessions. They are both pending potential litigation. The first involves the board, Scott Simmons, myself, George Dahl, and Wes Zakah from my office. That one should take, what did we say? 10 minutes, and no action is needed. The second is going to be also under pending potential litigation, and that RCW is 423110-1I. That will involve the board, Scott Simmons, myself, Matt Zarakor, Kyle Tuig, and Matt Koza from my office, and I believe that should be about 15 minutes and no action from the board on that one either.
so it is basically 10:40 right now. We're gonna go into executive session for a total of 25 minutes for the two items just stated. No action will be taken, so at the end of that 25 minutes, we will be adjourning to the morning and be coming back for our 2 o'clock later this afternoon. And so we will go into executive session and see everybody at 2 o'clock.